And we're live. Welcome back, Cetonauts. Today, we're going to be talking about the probably most essential part in Cosmos, which is the technology. And I think especially during this bear market, it's very important to understand and to like really be on top of the things. Anything that's like related to roadmap and technical updates and implementations. So I'm joined by two guests today. First off, we have Marko Baricevic. I think you've been on already, so this is your second or even third time. Marko, welcome back to the channel.
Thank you.
And then we have a premiere. We got Sam in the house today. How are you doing? How's everything going?
Yeah, good. How are you doing?
Nice. Yeah, I'm good. I think a lot of people these days are a little bit more emotional than normally because, you know, the SEC is angry at us. Prices are going down, so everybody's a little bit more emotional. But like I said, I think now is a really good time to really be on top of the things and to do your research and to also like figure out what ecosystems are building innovative things, right? And I think Cosmos, you know, everybody that I talked to, you know, we just had an event here in Dubai with coinbureau, and like they're very bullish on Cosmos technology. But I think what we can do a better job at is really communicating, you know, what is the development like, the alignment between all these sovereign development teams. So yeah, maybe you can share a little bit. I mean, Marco, you've been on already, but maybe Sam, from your perspective, you both work at Binary Builders, which is a core contributor to the Cosmos SDK. Maybe Sam, you can share a little bit about your journey, how you joined, and yeah, how you guys collaborate also with other teams within the Cosmos.
Yeah, so how I joined was I actually haven't even done like 1 year in the ecosystem yet, so I'm pretty fresh. I met Marco about a year ago, but we were working at IG together. I started at Tendermint working with Callum, and then that was like kind of at the end of last year, and then Marco pulled me across to start working at Binary. So I was working as a software engineer there, but then at Tendermint, now Comet BFT, and now I'm working I pretty much took Julian's spot as the DevRel engineer. And so like it's actually pretty cool because like Marco, when we first spoke, it was Marco likes everyone to kind of like know what they're doing with the code, or like should be writing some code in some capacity. So that like kind of really pushed me towards the role. And I also really like the team, like, yeah. So that's kind of how I got into like the ecosystem, Binary. But yeah.
And how big is the team right now, Binary?
How many of us is there, Marco? Like we probably like I just did numbers the other day, like 13.
Yeah, so the SDK team is about like 7, 8 at Binary.
And then you have other verticals, like can you share how that's structured?
Yeah, so Binary Builders has the Builders program, and it has the Builders program, and it has the Cosmos SDK, and we work quite closely with the ICF. So we spun out in January to become our own entity and to work on these products. Another vertical that we have is we operate some validators on a few networks, and then the last one is Numia. So Numia is a data analytics platform that is kind of incubated within Binary. We help them out when they need like technical know-how on how to do stuff within the SDK and within Comet, and then they help us out in various aspects like research on tokenomics and just generally keeping up with chains, monitoring chains, make sure everything's going smoothly.
Nice. And then the Builders program is basically, we can also maybe talk about this later, like developer onboarding, and also when teams want to explore building on Cosmos, like you basically help them to navigate and start building in Cosmos, right? With the Builders program, and also like regulatory things that you help on, or?
Yeah, from the Builders program, it's kind of like a whole plethora of things. It's like go-to-market, product, kind of like help out on some marketing, less so marketing. I think that's like when we point towards like Cito and the Friends crew. to go get more advice from them, as we even get advice from them from time to time. Legal, so the Builders program is working with a legal company called Legal Nodes, I believe, who works with a lot of teams in the ecosystem in Cosmos and in the general blockchain ecosystem. And then on the technical side, the team gets access to like the SDK team to ask general questions, to ask design architecture questions, and also for feedback on their implementations.
And you just said that you spun out in January, which is like 5 months ago, 6 months ago. So now moving forward, I guess you guys are trying to just be your entirely like sovereign entity. Are you also aiming to do some sort of fundraising in the future, or how does that work?
No, so like we want to run Binary more as like a collective than a kind of like a company that's like going to raise. Like the way we see it is like owner and I are like in Binary for the long run, and so we don't really see ourselves like selling equity for the time being. Of course, times can change, but the main thing that we do right now is that is a bit different from other companies, is basically we try and give the value back to the value creators. And so like if you are doing something that comes into Binary that uses the Binary brand, we try and treat it more as a pass through and like give most of the proceeds, most of the revenue there to the person who created the value. So it's like we don't really have an equity split because there isn't really any equity to, like there is equity to split, but there's like not really much capital because the capital tries to flow back to the value creators.
Yeah, we're seeing people coming in here. We've got over 50 people watching live right now. I think some people are confused because of the title. So I put the title at Cosmos, is Cosmos dead? Right. So, and maybe that can also be the first question for you guys. Like, what do you think? Is Cosmos dead? Are we going to survive this bear market, or is this the end for Cosmos? Because I saw some people are, panicking because Atom is going down. They think it's the end now. What do you think?
So I think the ecosystem has like a delay. So I was actually talking to Zaki about this last night. And like he was telling me that he feels like the ecosystem has a delay, that like actually early in the year, the panic that everyone has now was like a panic that was like across a few of the core like engineers. But now it's like the light, everyone sees the light of the tunnel at the end of the tunnel. There's DYDX, there's Celestia, USDC coming to Noble, Barachain with Polaris. And those things will really help shape like the new world of Cosmos. And so it's like we're kind of like in this middle ground now that's like we're waiting on a lot of these teams to launch. But I think once those teams launch, we're going to see a new world for Cosmos, for its technology as well.
And then Sam, I mean, you said earlier like you're relatively new to working full-time in Cosmos and being a cosmonaut. How has your experience been over the past year? Like, what's your impression of the ecosystem?
Yeah, I definitely think it is a little bit turbulent. Like like when I first started, all of like the changes that were happening. But then it also like seeing people like Marco, for example, really push and seeing a lot of like the technology that's coming out and like how passionate people are. It made me want to stay in the ecosystem as well. So I think for me, it's definitely kind of like leaning on that and like what the SDK is about and like what like these core teams, like you speak to some people from these core teams and yeah, they're just like really passionate about the technology and like where everything's going. Yeah. So I see it like, I'm very positive about it because I jumped back in January. So after having a bad experience, so yeah.
But were you working on any other crypto ecosystem before that, or is that your first?
No.
Okay.
No, so I was a project manager for like 10 years. And then I taught myself to code. And then, so the last 3 years I've been working as an engineer.
Okay. Nice. But yeah, I fully agree. I think Cosmos, like I said, I think turbulent is actually a nice term. It definitely is, because we also talked about this today. I had a meeting with some people here, and it's like Cosmos is very like you have a lot of like sovereign teams and people and individuals contributing. We also talked about this earlier, like Cosmoverse coming up later this year. Like that's something that we, me and 3 others have started as outsiders that just randomly got into Cosmos. And I think what we did with Cosmos is not possible in any other crypto ecosystem, because every other crypto ecosystem is very top down, right? You have a core organization that dictates and shares and informs the community about the roadmap, about next steps, about the next conference, the next initiative to onboard users. But in Cosmos, it's more diverse, which makes it also a little bit more turbulent. So I actually really like that term. But so is Binary actually, because you guys are mainly contributing to the development of the SDK, is that like tied to any sort of like chain? Are you focused mostly on the Cosmos hub, or is it just for any chain in that wants to build in Cosmos that you work with, or how does that work?
So there, right now it's like kind of like up in the air. There's a few chains we work with closer, and those are the teams that are giving the most feedback to us and that are pushing the software the hardest. And those, because that's where we will learn the most about like where things need to be fixed, what we need to refactor, and a lot of those use cases are really pushing how the product is developed today. And so some of the teams are like Crypto.com. Crypto.com is like an amazing contributor to the Cosmos SDK. We work closely with Huang Yi and Calvin, and then the Osmosis team are like amazing contributors back as well. Like Dave is helping us quite a bit, and we're always tapping him on the shoulder for advice and for research. And then the Berachain team is like really pushing our architecture and design thinking too, because they like have a use case that is not necessarily enabled by the SDK, but is like pushing the SDK to very close to what it can enable. And so they're really challenging us on how to enable the SDK to build those use cases and build more use cases past that. And so those are just a couple. There's definitely more, but those are really the main ones that are contributing back and really challenging us for these new use cases.
Yeah, and just on that as well, like, yeah, so crypto.com, Huang Yi, like, yeah, we've been speaking about, and I've spoken to a few other teams about this, but like people were having, like people have been looking at like where the bottlenecks are, and I've spoken to a couple people about how like it seems like it's at the SDK level, but we're working with these teams to see what we can do, and so like we're refactoring storage, etc. So these are all of the things, like if teams come to us, we want to be able to work with them and align like the SDK with their needs and wants as well.
And are you guys the only ones currently maintaining the SDK, or are there also other teams from other organizations?
Yeah, Region's still helping us.
Oh, they're still, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know Region, they were like the core maintainers, I think a couple of years ago, like it was mainly them, but I didn't know that they're still actually contributing, but that's cool.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, as Marco said, like there's other like teams that are also contributing, like, and like opening PRs, like the ones that Marco has listed off, like have helped quite significantly as well. So it's nice to see that people contributing back into like such a core project.
And then, but there's no team at the ICF or Informal that is doing Cosmos SDK stuff?
They may be doing auxiliary stuff, like I know it seems like the Quint team is like building something to like help test, but nothing at the core level of the SDK. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, and can you talk maybe a little bit about the like the evolution of the SDK, like how it evolved over the years, and before we get into details, like I think the main thing that we want to talk about is also like moving forward, some of the exciting updates. I also saw a tweet earlier about Eden coming up. But yeah, maybe like a little bit of backstory, context of the evolution of the SDK would be cool.
I mean, should I go over like what the SDK is? Like, do we need some context around?
Sure. Yes.
Maybe, yeah, that might be a good thing to start off with. So like the SDK is a like toolkit that enables modular blockchain development. And what that means is so developers don't have to write everything from scratch. What the SDK provides is like a set of tools and modules. So for example, like the consensus layer is already taken care of. And maybe like, so like my analogy is that if you want to build a house, you could start from scratch, or you could like have like a prefabricated house with like walls and windows and stuff like that. And it's similar. This is like what the SDK does. It like gives you all of the components to be able to build a blockchain such as consensus engine, storage, and then wires everything up for you. And you can change things, but like essentially it gives you this kind of structure. Marco, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think you did it. You said it well. I mean, the SDK like kind of has the same origin story as like many other frameworks or libraries to build blockchains or rollups. It all stems from, oh, I want to build this chain. So substrate, optimism, like all these things is like I want to build our chain, and then it's just like, oh, like we're seeing everyone fork BTC and everyone's forking Geth. Like, what if we actually build it in a modular way that like can be repurposed for other use cases as well? There came the Cosmos SDK when it was separated from the Cosmos Hub or from Gaia, and then over the years it's evolved to enable more and more use cases. But yeah, it's another library, it's another tool in an arsenal to build out a blockchain or to build out an ecosystem. I would like to say it's like one of the smaller ones, because I think the community and marketing side is a lot more, a lot bigger of a hurdle than the tech side. I think the tech side, you can kind of build everything with anything today.
And like, just to add on top of that, like, I think originally, was it in I don't know when you started, Marco, but like it was originated in like 2017. And it had like so many people working on it. Like I have so many friends that have like dipped in and out of like IG, working on Tendermint, working on the SDK. And then I guess it became more of a maintenance project from what I could see, because it became like so much tech debt, and like the vision of actually like having an ecosystem of communicating blockchains, like it didn't actually come into fruition. So like, and this is what this is what we're pushing forward to do like today. And that's like what we want to do. We want it to really be like enable greater composability and modularity, and like for it to no longer be a maintenance project. And we want it to be actually like this more of a plug and play thing. So, and that's like what we're kind of committed to now.
And for those who wonder, SDK stands for Software Development Kit. And actually, it's one of the most widely adopted in crypto, right? And I can also maybe share in a second the link where people can also do their research and all the documentation about the SDK. But it also talks about how in this, app chain world, this app chain thesis, how important it is to have a very robust and like flexible and elastic framework that you can have different modules, as you said, and we can get into this. But can you maybe share like some of the, you already mentioned Crypto.com, what are some of the like biggest projects that are built on the Cosmos SDK? How many of them are there, and like how much is it actually being used?
Yeah, so there's like easily like 50, 60 chains that are live today. Many of them, some of them don't publicize that they use the Cosmos SDK, and that's totally fine. Like I think like the technology, like something like the Cosmos SDK is like a back-end technology that's not supposed to be front and center. Your product is supposed to be front and center. And so there's teams like Binance, so the Binance chain is built with the Cosmos SDK. Some other users that are more well-known in today is like, so DYDX is building with the Cosmos SDK, and they'll be launching a chain soon. Celestia is built with the Cosmos SDK and Comet. And interestingly enough, like Polygon, so Polygon has like 2 chains running, and their secondary chain is also built with the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint, but they forked ages ago. And so there's a long plethora of users that even some of them we don't know. But to only name a few, there's those, Osmosis, the Cosmos Hub, Juno, and really the list really goes on and on. But yeah, that's the kind of like the ones that like stand out, at least to me.
Yeah, I think when people when people hear these things, they're like, holy shit, like Cosmos Tech has been implemented in so many projects. And like you said, I think Polygon, they forked Tendermint, and I think they call it Peppermint. Also, I think for Binance, they also have this dual chain model where one of them is also Cosmos chain. But yeah, I think it's cool to see like how that's adopted. And like, what is, you said earlier, Crypto.com, they're upstreaming a lot of their work. Like, how is that with these chains like Polygon, Binance, I guess also Terra? How are they also like upstreaming a lot, and do you have close communications with them, or how is that?
With Binance, we have communication here and there. They were very much so. They were contributing a lot early on. They were very contributing a lot. Now they're building a new chain also using the Cosmos SDK. We don't see them as contributors as often anymore. They still pop up here and there, but we communicate to them just so they have an idea of like what's in the pipeline, what's coming. Crypto.com, like we work with them quite closely, so they're upstreaming a lot. They're like making changes, and we backport it because they're not using a fork. Osmosis upstreams a lot. Polygon, I heard a rumor that they're like thinking of unforking and moving to the latest SDK. There's going to be a lot of work there, but if that happens, then I can easily foresee them also contributing back as well.
Yeah, I think Polygon yesterday they shared that they will announce their roadmap, like Polygon 2.0, like basically Atom 2.0. They just do it. But and you said so Binance,
decentralization, right?
yeah. So you said Binance is building a new chain. What do you mean by that? They're building another chain now, or what?
Yeah, they did a post about it like a couple months ago. It's like called Greenfield, and it's meant to be like a storage chain. So they're also using the Cosmos SDK there as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember that post, but I think I haven't heard anything since then. And do you know anything about? I also made a video about this. The rumor about MakerDAO. I think they also had this blog post where at the very end they said new chain or whatever, like a placeholder name, and it sounded like a Cosmos chain as well. Are you in talks with them, or?
We've been talking to them on and off, and just like exploring what's possible. And yeah, so I'm hoping. So I think like what Cosmos is today, or what is Cosmos being seen as today, is a lot different than like maybe what Cosmos was like meant to be seen as, or will be seen as in the future. Because right now everyone's like, oh, you launch your own chain, and like you are sovereign and you are everything like this. But I think like where Cosmos technology really becomes powerful is when you have like these apps that like are existing and running into scalability issues, or want to add more features onto their list, onto their offering list, but can't really do it on existing chains. And so they need to do something else, and they want to be more sovereign. They want to own themselves and stuff like this instead of being sharing compute. And that's where Cosmos Tech will really start to shine.
Yeah, I really like that you said, the space is constantly evolving. Cosmos itself, but also obviously outside of Cosmos, there's a lot of things going on, right? So can you share maybe also for like any developers that are listening to this, what is the strongest value proposition in your view for the Cosmos SDK over other SDKs in crypto?
So like what you can do with the Cosmos SDK is it's very freeing, and so you can really do almost anything. And so there's I mean, I might not be the best person to answer because like I've played around with all these technologies, and at the end of the day, you can build anything with almost anything. And what you're really buying into is the community and the support of the community to really get your product off the ground. So like compared to like Substrate, like you can build the same product that you can build in Substrate, you can build in Cosmos SDK, and vice versa. I think once you go into like right now, I'm diving into like Optimism. To see how their tech works. But I think like once you go into like the world of like L3s, then it becomes a bit different, because in Cosmos, like you can do a roll up or you can do a blockchain It's not very limiting. You're not really tied to one. But I think right now in some of these like roll-up architectures, you can only be a roll-up. And if you want to transition to a blockchain, then to your own sovereign blockchain, then it might be harder.
And what are some of the yeah, I mean, Sammy, feel free to add something. I was also going to ask about the like you mentioned earlier some of the modules and how that might also be something where developers, especially with IBC in mind, like is that maybe something where developers that really care about interoperability or like chain sovereignty, and yeah, what does that enable over other SDKs and like, yeah, maybe just share a little bit about the modules and how that all works and what possibilities developers have there.
I mean, yeah, so I think maybe Marco is probably better to answer this just in comparison to like the other like ecosystems and comparatively to like modules like specifically, I think.
Yeah, so it's like if we look at different ecosystems and compare it to like the Cosmos SDK and like what it offers, there may be like some other frameworks like offer more out of the box. So let's say they offer like POA and POS, like they just had the time to like develop all these existing modules. But like in the Cosmos SDK, you get like a subset of those, like you get the core modules that you would need to launch a chain and build a community and decentralize it. And so in the Cosmos eyes, it's always been very powerful to keep decentralization. And this is why in the early days, there was such a big effort to launch a chain in a decentralized manner. Meaning if we look at these other chains, they kind of like launch from a central point and then expand the validator set. Zaki and team back then did a lot of work to be able to submit Genesis transactions, and everyone comes online at different times, and the chain is able to start in a decentralized way. And I think that's another super powerful thing that is very unique to Cosmos. And so you kind of like, well, in the US, we don't know what the regulation is. So we don't know if it helps or if it doesn't, but we know in other jurisdictions that it definitely does aid that it didn't start from a central point. And then on top of like the other modules, there's a whole plethora of like how it gets access to consensus, how it communicates to external parties, how oracles can work. So part of like the Eden release is we're completing the story of ABCI 2.0, of ABCI++, as some people know. And what this really enables is previously everything had to be transactions, and so users were competing with the protocol to get transactions in order to have the protocol function. So we can say like Oracle messages. Now those Oracle messages can just be moved into consensus, and now users aren't competing with Oracle messages anymore. And so now all of a sudden more transactions can be put on the chain because there's less computation coming from the transactions themselves, but it's actually more secure because now validators are signing themselves within protocol that this is what they see, this is what they believe, and stuff like that. So really sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, just on top of that as well, like, so Marco is referring to the Eden release, which is 0.50, and like it has ABCI 2.0, which was like a huge piece of work for us. So it has like from Comet BFT, it has like extend vote, verify vote extensions, and finalize block as well. So yeah, like, I mean, Marco was using Oracle as an example, but like if I use like auctions, like it allows you to be like a lot more like you can customize a lot more. For example, like when we did our workshop at Gateway last weekend, we were talking about like customization of like mempool through like fee priority or like non, for example. So there's a lot more like that you can do, just like kind of tying back into like this whole like modular talk. There's also like customization with that if we're talking about like what like the SDK offers as well. So yeah, we're working towards bringing these pieces of work, and like, so like, I mean, I can keep going about like what like all these like ABCI 2.0 is, I guess, and like what that offers.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
Maybe can you maybe I think you also mentioned just a Comet BFT, and people might be confused because they might only be familiar with Tendermint as the consensus algorithm. But can you maybe, since you mentioned ABCI too, what exactly does that mean? What is ABCI? And maybe for those that don't know anything about Cosmos, like why is it an important puzzle piece for the SDK?
I mean, Comet BFT Tendermint is like the consensus layer. And ABCI is the interface between Comet and the application. So anytime I'm speaking about ABCI 2.0, ABCI 1.0, we're talking about the functionality, I guess, these new functionalities of ABCI, which is the interface between. So it just allows for more like customization, etc., and like features for, I guess like the best thing I can do is give an example. So I was talking about like extending vote, verify vote extensions, and finalize block, and say like, the reason I'm using auction is because I'm doing another workshop in July. So I'm going to be using this as an example. So like if we had an auction and there was like 10 minutes remaining in a bidding period and like multiple bids have been submitted, a validator might request to extend the bidding period. So like previously you wouldn't be able to do this. So if the auctioneer verifies that the validator has a valid reason for extending the bidding period, the auctioneer can approve the vote extension request, and then the bidding period's extended. So essentially, like what you're able to do is like extend this voting period. So it enables you to like customize and do a lot more with like the application. So yeah, if that makes sense, Marco, maybe you want to add to that.
No, that definitely sounds good to me. I mean, it just it won't be really felt by like end users. Like a lot of the work we do on the Cosmos SDK isn't as exciting for like end users to like think about. It's more so like what we help the products that like you are using on a day-to-day basis. We make those lives easier than that, like those proceeds or that dividend that maybe like those savings that are passed to the application developer are then passed to the end user.
And maybe that's like this little thing, like vote extensions and extending the time periods, maybe like more exciting for like the developers than, like Marco said, the end users. But yeah, as an engineer, like it's quite exciting to be able to have that functionality.
Yeah, and honestly, I think I did also a session recently with the Interchain Developer Academy, and I was surprised. Like after we did that, like a lot of people have signed up for that program. So I think there's actually a lot of developers listening. But yeah, I think also like people are already asking for your guys' Twitter accounts. I can also find it and drop it in the chat box. But one question I had is the performance of a Cosmos chain. Like, where do you see that we stand currently in the competitive landscape in crypto, and where do you think is this the biggest bottleneck for Cosmos chains, if any, where you say we need to really improve or fix this or that problem for Cosmos chains to really be competitive long term? Is there anything that you
I can just touch on like reiterate on what I said before, but like the thing that we're working on at the moment, the bottleneck is like storage, and like transactions per second, like everything's kind of affected. And so Bez was working on ADR 65, I think, and that's a really interesting document about like storage, and we had a whole team kind of and like external teams working on that. And so like we're going to be separating state commitment, state storage, and essentially that's going to be done by the end of summer. But other things, maybe Marco can have a bit more.
So I think it's like so if we also look at like the landscape of like existing Cosmos chains and who's like really pushing the performance, like the number one team that comes to light is Say. So Say is like doing 300 millisecond blocks, and they're trying to like move the chain as fast as possible. And they're benchmarking. They're not doing like transactions per second, but they're doing operations. So like an operation would be something that like if you're doing a send to someone else, it's like you are submitting a transaction that holds that send, that like operation. And then what they're doing is like they're aggregating all those operations and submitting them on chain all at once. And they've done like benchmarking of like 20,000 operations a second with their like they have a bit optimized code, and they're working on upstreaming that code to the Cosmos SDK. There's like another piece of work from crypto.com, like it's like an in-memory like commitment structure, so an in-memory data structure that they've been working on, and like we're working on integrating that, and like that is basically like we've been benchmarking with like different algorithms and stuff like this, and it blows everything out of the water. And so I think really once we get that in, like the goal for by the end of this year is that like consensus is the bottleneck. So it's like right now the application is the bottleneck because the time it takes to like do all these operations and then to write to your database is very slow. And so it's like, how can we make that as fast as possible? But then it's like then the slow part is back on consensus, and then Comet has to like pump out some insane performance numbers, and then then the chains will be moving as fast as possible. But I would say there is a trade-off to like chains moving super fast, because there is the empty block syndrome. I would say like there's a lot of empty block space in general in blockchains right now.
I do want to say as well, like the velocity of the team is really high, and like Marco has some like really great vision, and actually that like it's cool to actually see that like executed as well and actually put into practice. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to say though.
Yeah, and I think also for reference, actually I made a video about this, like the fastest chains in crypto and then also the fastest chains in Cosmos. I think average speed to finality is 6 to 7 seconds, something around that. I think the fastest Cosmos chain right now is in fact Injective with around a second. And then you mentioned Say, which I think they want to be faster than like 400 milliseconds or something like that.
Like 300, 400.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I think they want to be faster than Solana. I think like that's Solana levels.
Yeah, which is really admirable, and I think it's like those are the people that like that's another team that we like want to work closely with, and we are trying to work closely with them because they are pushing the software as hard as possible and trying to eke out every inch of performance. And those teams are really like, we integrate those performance improvements, and it will trickle down to like everyone who's not pushing the software as hard. So you're going to be able to like most likely run nodes on Raspberry Pis very simply, like run it on constrained environments, or even in the browser in the future.
What would you say like might be the trade-offs for Say of being so fast? I mean, besides the empty block syndrome, but is it also like decentralization, like sacrificed to some degree, or not really?
It really matters the use case. So I think it's like for them to provide the user experience that some traders would want in a centralized DEX, you need a chain that's going that fast, even if you're going to have empty blocks. But it's like in many other scenarios, like if the main selling point of your chain is not like a DEX, or like you're not targeting the users that are like expecting super high performance. And you can like, I mean, even some Web2 apps today, like they take a second or two to load, 2-3 seconds to load, maybe sometimes longer. So a lot of users are like used to that, but it's like the traders, the people who are going like super low latency, that's where we run into the issues of like where we need to, where those chains need to accept that there's going to be lots of empty block space.
Yeah, I think evmos, they went really fast, and I think they rode back a little bit. I think they went to like 1 or 2 second block times, and now they're back at 4 or something like that. But yeah, also people saying Kujira really fast.
Mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, so can you maybe talk about some of the challenges before we get into like future and what's to come? Like, what are some of the challenges? What is happening when there's any sort of like vulnerability monitoring? Like, how does that all work? And yeah, where do you maybe even see the biggest weaknesses or downsides in the SDK, if there's any?
That's a hard question.
It's perfect.
I actually need to think about it.
We're gonna put you on the spot, Sam. No. Like with the Cosmos SDK, there's like a ton of things it enables, and there's a few things where it suffers at, and those areas like are really areas that we're picking to like really dive in on. So Sam already mentioned storage. That's already going to be like a huge improvement by the end of the summer. There's like a different piece of work that we're like rewriting really the core layer, the bottom layer, not necessarily the modules right away, but the core layer, so users can really do different things with it. So right now, the Cosmos SDK is a library to build a blockchain and a rollup via like Rollkit. But the other part of this is like the current ABCI and like how it's built, how the SDK is built around ABCI is kind of like limiting in potentially what some features, what some users would want. And so abstracting that out and cleaning up this base app so we can really hone in on like where the performance bottlenecks are at that layer. That's another thing that we're like super excited about to really refactor. And that really enables like a whole new world of like what users can do with Cosmos. And that's when I think when we really achieve that, and if we do it really well, we'll have more users of the Cosmos SDK that we won't even know about. Like, I think it's very powerful when a technology is used by users without needing the help of the authors or without like necessarily it's a pro and a con when they don't give like homage, let's say, to the authors or like to the code. But I also think it's very powerful because you don't need to be like I said earlier, like this technology is not meant to be front and center. Like being part of Cosmos and using the Cosmos SDK are like two different things. Even being part of Cosmos could be construed as like not necessary to use the software. So it is like some teams want this, some teams want that. And I think really once we were able to do this rewrite, then we'll be able to really enable even more people to enable the software to really transcend Cosmos and the technology of where it's at right now.
Yeah, I mean, I still am struggling on like what like the worst thing about the SDK is, but like on Marco's note, like yeah, I think what we want to be able to do is give people the best experience, but also like this whole plug and play thing that we're talking about before, and like being able to replace Comet BFT with something such as Rollkit or like swap out for other consensus machines. I think this is like the piece of work that Marco is talking about, because like with the S, and this might also be one of the hardest things, but like everything is like so closely integrated, and it is hard to kind of sometimes swap components out, but we're doing this little bit by little bit, and this piece of work that Marco is talking about will be kind of at the end of, we're trying to get it done by like the end of the year, early next year, and that again, yeah, leads into sort of other things that we're working on and like our roadmap, and like we have a few working groups, like one of them's cross language, which is, I think that's like our only one at the moment, Marco, but soon we'll have the runtime modules working group as well. And like we encourage other teams to kind of also contribute to those as well, so that we have like brains kind of from every kind of different environment and like just different teams. So yeah. And with it, yeah, so I was just going to say with the context with the cross language, it's like because we want to be able to use different languages other than Go within the SDK.
Yeah, so you already mentioned the Eden upgrade. Can you maybe share some timelines? Also, like right after that, what's next? What's your plans for? I guess I mean we're already in mid-June, so what's the plans for the rest of 2023?
So I can speak to that. So we have 0.50 Eden coming out. We have an alpha tag for that already. I think last week we Julian tagged that, but then we had so with the actual release itself, I'm thinking like end of June, Marco. Sorry, end of July. I think we're already halfway through June. Maybe like July at some point. I don't want to give like a complete like solid answer on that, just because give or take. But yeah, that's really exciting. There's like not only like ABCI 2.0, but we have like a lot of other like different pieces. I mean, I can speak about those, but like just to give you a bit more context as well. And then I think because these releases have been quite quick, because we just released 047 a couple months ago, I think. And then like the release cycle has been, very close together. So then now it's 0.50. We want to like give chains some time to be able to actually upgrade. So I don't think it will be until like the end of the year that we will have another release after this one.
Yeah, it's like we have this like vision of like, here's where Cosmos is today, and Cosmos as the ecosystem, and it's really where do we want to drive the ecosystem going forward, and it's like who's going to help us get there, and like we're going through that and going through like the vision of like where do we want to take the software as well. And I think everything that Sam said is like on point of like what we're going to do next and what we're going to play around with. Most of the team is like very excited. Like we're starting to dabble into research like ZK technology, really thinking about how to bring ZK to Cosmos, starting to play around, talking with teams, using their like ZK VMs and like how to integrate that with Cosmos, how to like build Cosmos chains in a way that you can use ZK technology and other things that will be coming in the future. And so we're really, really starting to like touch the surface of all this.
Yeah, maybe a final question. I could also look through some of the questions in the live chats. There's a lot of engagement. Where do you actually see the Cosmos ecosystem going? I mean, you already mentioned some of the big chains, right? Celestia, Say Network, DYDX, Noble launching. I also think this atom economic zone narrative is like slowly starting to pick up. Like, what are some of the things that you are mostly excited about? Like, where do you see the ecosystem going? And yeah, what's just your general sentiment right now for both of you?
You want to go first, Sam, or should I?
Maybe you go first. I'm like, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think like, I mean, just like every ecosystem has ups and downs. And we're coming off like an amazing 2 years in Cosmos. And so we need a cool down period. Like we need a period to like catch up on a lot of the tech that we've been building for the past 2 years, release it and get ready for the next hot market or like the next craze of Cosmos. And so that's, I think, where we are right now. And so it's like, it's just a building phase. And right now we're building a lot of infrastructure. And I think at Gateway, there were a lot of infrastructure teams. And now it's time with the Builders program, we're really looking at, okay, what use cases, what things can we actually build with blockchain that actually have a real world presence and not just a DeFi thing on chain. And so we are talking to like some enterprise users even who are thinking of transitioning their like service that was built in the 80s, 90s to something like blockchain because they want to enable more use cases. And so there is stuff in the pipeline, there is stuff coming. And so for where the Cosmos ecosystem will go, I think the Cosmos ecosystem what is the Cosmos ecosystem will kind of change, and the definition of that will change a bit. And right now I think we're kind of one of the few ecosystems that has this like we don't necessarily like we have this one like thing called Cosmos, but the Cosmos isn't a chain. And in every other ecosystem, there's Optimism, Arbitrum, Polkadot, these are like, we're talking about a chain. In Cosmos, when you say Cosmos, you're not talking about a specific chain. You're talking about a collective of ecosystems that are working together to build a better future. And so it's a lot different than other things. And that's why I think this is where people like don't really understand it, because many people expect that, oh, like when I talk about Cosmos, I'm talking about the Cosmos Hub. But you're talking about just a collective of ecosystems that are all sovereign, that all have their own communities, that we're all working together for this one overarching vision of trying to build a better world. And so I think this is like where we're really set apart. And I think there are people trying to do that with this like L2, L3 thing. But I think Cosmos is there already, and we're only going to accelerate more with more teams using the software, especially after the slew of teams launch in the next 6 months to a year. Everyone's going to see, oh, I can build what I want here in breakneck time with the performance I want. I don't have to, it's not that complex to do it. I can make it complex, but I don't need to. All these things, I get support from the core team. Even if I'm not interacting with the Cosmos Hub, like you get support from the Builders program, you get support from the ICF, you get support from the Cosmos SDK, from Informal, from all these teams. You get support just by being part of this collective. You don't have to like bring value back to the hub or anything. And that's where we're really setting ourselves apart. And that will really enable a huge amount of acceleration in the broader ecosystem.
And just on that, like Marco has a different perspective kind of to me, because yeah, like I mentioned before, I'm quite new to the ecosystem. But for me, like personally, I think it's on the note of growth. For me, it's like that growth and technology. Like I'm super excited to build things myself, you know? So like we talk about like enabling others, but I feel like I'm sometimes talking to myself when it comes to these like interviews and whatnot, because, you know, I'm like just so excited to see like Bez built something for Skip recently, and I, you know, like it's just like going into the code, looking at everything that everyone's doing, and everyone's like getting more excited, especially like with everything coming out and like the use of vote extensions, and, you know, DYDX are wanting that piece of, you know, that piece of work, that feature, so that it enables them. And so it's just like, I'm really excited about like what's coming next, I would say. And like, yeah, and just being able to use everything and play at the end of the day. And it's a really, really cool ecosystem to be part of, because everyone is like super nice and like welcoming as well. And everyone really does care about the tech. So yeah, I think that's kind of my perspective.
It's refreshing to hear, because I think, you know, especially if you're all day on Cosmos Twitter, like things can escalate sometimes. But I think honestly that applies to Twitter in general. Like if you're deep in anything on Twitter, like I think there's always drama, and obviously the fact that also like, you know, a lot of people are just keyboard warriors, and, you know, I think some of them also just love creating drama. So
yeah,
I think
I was just going to say, I'm not like the biggest on Twitter. I've only been starting to like dive or dip in a little bit, just with like work-wise and stuff. So maybe that's also part of the reason why I have this like optimism.
Yeah, there we go. How do we sing? CT is CT. Cosmos Twitter, crypto Twitter, whatever. But yeah, final question from my side. Yeah, actually people are also asking Atom or the Cosmos Hub. I think it also went through a lot, right? Like 7-8 months ago when we announced the Atom 2.0 idea at Cosmoverse, and then a lot of drama, a lot of politics, was rejected. Now we do see this creation of the Atom Economic Zone, though, and Neutron is live, and Stride is on chain right now, the proposal. I didn't check it. I think it looks like it's going to go through. But what are your views on the Cosmos Hub specifically, the Atom Economic Zone? Do you still think that Atom is kind of like an important flagship chain in Cosmos, or do you think like with the Celestia, Sane Networks, DYDX is coming, that it's losing the positioning there as like the chain in Cosmos?
Marco, you're probably better suited for this question.
Yeah,
as much context. Yeah,
I think Marco is the biggest OG from all of us right now. So maybe
yeah,
Marco,
exactly.
So the hub, yeah, I think the Cosmos Hub is like on a really good trajectory. It's been really exciting talking to like the likes of Jahan from the Cosmos Hub team and about what he has planned and how he's thinking about product for the Cosmos Hub. And it's super exciting to see where it's going. But I mean, they have a huge hill to climb. And the longer it took them to get there, for Jahan to get put in place to do this work, the hill just kept getting bigger and bigger. And so they're chipping away at that hill, and it's getting faster and faster, in my opinion. Like there's the LSM stuff that's getting launched right now, the liquid staking, and there's what you mentioned, Neutron, Stride. So there's things moving, and there's just more and more in the pipeline. There's an amazing team there, and I think it's like a lot of people are justified in that thinking. But I think that, like I mentioned earlier, there is this like little delay of like when things get announced and when the community understands everything that's going on. And I think that's like this like salami meme that's going around for like the Atom economic zone. And I think people are like, oh yeah. And then like probably in like 4 or 5 months, we'll see it all around the news. Everyone's gonna be writing about it, and it's gonna be like, and everyone's gonna be thinking like, oh, why did I doubt that? And so I think we're like in that period that there's a lot of stuff going on. But even though it's like being publicized, people like aren't fully understanding the grasp of what it enables in the near future.
What do you think is the biggest threat for the Cosmos Hub?
The biggest threat?
Competitive chain. Because I hear a lot of people saying that when Celestia launches, like the Cosmos Hub is irrelevant, or when XYZ launches, like what do you think is the biggest competitor or threat for the hub?
I think the competitors are maybe not in the Cosmos ecosystem, or maybe not using the Cosmos stack, because like within the Cosmos ecosystem, if we look at like the product that the hub is offering right now, it's like security, because the hub is the highest valued Cosmos chain that is offering a form of shared security or replicated security. I think like when Celestia launches, the hub will augment itself to become a settlement layer, and that will be huge, because you'll have a settlement layer that has an immense amount of value on top of Celestia, and then like you can augment it with the hub and Ethereum. And so I think that it's like the product offering there. There are like other ecosystems that are trying to do something similar, because that's like how value accrual comes back to like the originating chain. So I think like maybe some of these like L2, L3 designs right now in the Ethereum space are some competitors to the Cosmos Hub. And I think like some other ecosystems could be, but they're not even thinking in that direction. They're thinking about like building some other products instead of like taking what they already have and trying to build something with that, because they already have product market fit with that product.
Interesting. Yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff going on within Cosmos, but also outside. So yeah. Cool stuff. Final thing from my side, because we talked about this also a couple of weeks ago with the IC Interchain Academy, ICA, I guess, IDA, Interchain Developer Academy.
Yeah.
So in terms of like developer onboarding, like where do you see Cosmos as an ecosystem? We talked about this a lot in the very beginning, like the fact that it's more bottom up and more sovereign teams contributing different things. What do you think the Cosmos community, all of us, could maybe do better? How can we maybe also onboard developers better and smoother? Maybe Sam, I mean, you've been onboarded to Cosmos. Like, how was that process for you, and how do you think this process could be improved or refined to onboard more developers into the ecosystem?
So yeah, this is a big thing at the moment, because when I started, I obviously had this like onboarding experience, and anything that's kind of been missing within the docs, because like I learned everything mainly from the docs, from Marco, from Callum, who's now at Celestia. So I've got a good network, but at the same time, there's so much missing, I feel, from the docs. So like I've just done like a revamp, which is in like staging at the moment. So it should like, we're hopefully going to release that soon. So like, just like with the docs revamp, you know, it's just got like kind of more user journeys and making it a little bit more easier to kind of navigate through the documentation. That's a big thing, because I feel like sometimes we take that for granted. Like when you are just going in and it's just to the documentation, and it's just really overwhelming. I mean, the developer portal for for Cosmos is really great because it's for beginners, but I'm also working on like tutorials and whatnot, just not only to help myself better understand what you can use the SDK for, but also to like help others on board. And I think it's like really, really important. And like, yeah, Marco's been really kind of pushing this work as well, because, you know, it's like the more kind of effort that we put in to the documentation, etc., the less questions we get. And we're also using like, but we need to make an announcement about it, but GitHub discussions as well, and moving away from Discord. So, you know, everything is actually searchable.
So when are you guys launching the Binary Builders YouTube channel, Developer Onboarding 101? When is that coming?
Marco will be like, yeah, Sam, when's that coming?
Hopefully soon. TBD.
Yeah.
Let's say. I think it's like it's something we would love to do, but I think it's
time, resources.
Yeah. if you can add more hours in a day, we'll do it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that I saw. Like Skip did kind of like an intro to MEV, and like I really loved the way that it was done. It was like so like easy and basic to understand, and I think that we definitely need more of those as well. Like it's super helpful, you know. So anything to kind of to help. Any recommendations as well, definitely.
I mean, I'm obviously a big believer in content creation, also like physical events. When we started with Cosmos, like Cosmos 1, there wasn't really a developer track. Last year, we had a proper track, I would say, in the Hacker Lounge. You know, the prototype of mesh security was developed at Cosmoverse, and a lot of other ideas and thoughts and tooling. This year, we're really like doubling down on that developer experience. So I think like physical events is one thing. I also love to see that, you know, Dora is really getting big into Cosmos, and they're doing multiple hackathons with different projects. So I would really love to see also, I talk with the informal team and other development teams, that like there's just more like participation and like involvement and like creation of these events. I think that's one big thing where Cosmos could do much better. And second, I think content, that's why I was asking you straight up, because honestly, I think, you know, I look at Avalanche, I look at Solana. They have a lot of initiatives where they're just like hosting webinars, where they're hosting live coding sessions, all these kind of things. And I think, you know, I'm getting more and more bullish on this, you know, these programs and these workshops, and even like interviews that I do with you. I'm sure like after this, people are going to reach out to you or to me and want to get started. Last time I did the stream with the Interchain Developer Academy, people like literally signed up. Like content is really the best way to onboard people. Obviously, it needs to be, you know, like I say, it's obviously time consuming and all these kind of things. But yeah, maybe, you know,
on the content front, we've been spending a lot of time on like thinking and building a whole narrative around the Cosmos SDK and really do a strong marketing content push. And so it's a lot of it is in the pipeline. We're just trying to like finalize. We have a call tomorrow with the marketing team at the ICF. They've been doing an amazing job about like enabling us, and we'll hire like more of a product marketer. And so definitely you'll be seeing a lot more content out there. Like, I mean, it'll be night and day. Like right now there's like maybe one here and there, and we're trying to do like at least a week. We're trying to like,
Marco and I are marketing at the moment. So, but
it's like when you give a developer a Twitter, it's like they're like, oh, how do you do marketing and stuff like this. So it's like we're trying to do the best. But and so now things are going smoothly on the Cosmos SDK. It's like it's scaring me a bit, because it's like when things go smoothly, then it's like there's something wrong that we're not seeing. But most likely it's all fine, but like it's just not something I'm entirely used to. And so now everything's moving smoothly, and so now like you're going to start seeing a lot more content, webinars, workshops, and stuff like this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like with me, like, yeah, I said last week was my first workshop or whatever. So, you know, it's just like ramping up, doing more. So that's a lot of my role, I think, as well. And that's what I want to be doing, and like want to be creating things for everyone. So yeah, I think as we go along the year, we'll just be getting more and more and ramping up in that respect. So it's quite exciting at the moment as well. And both Marco and I are like G'ing each other up half the time, so to get excited. So
yeah, I think you mentioned something very important, which is narrative, and I think that also contributes to culture, that builds culture. And I think in Cosmos, like, the culture has always been, like, since I joined, literally, and like with Cosmoverse, I think many people don't know, but like it's really hard to put this together in this ecosystem of like sovereignty, because there is no foundation that we can go to and like they're gonna pay for everything. We always have to like start from scratch every year, right? So, but I think that's also like an opportunity. What I do think though is that there's sometimes at least a bit of a lack of alignment. So I think, I would love to contribute even more. Like, I'm already trying to do my best here, but to reestablish some of that alignment, because I think that's the true power of Cosmos, is the fact that it's a sovereign ecosystem of sovereign entities, organizations, software development companies, right? The Notionals, the Strangelove, Confio, ICF, Informal, Occlusion, right? It's amazing. Like, you don't see that anywhere else. And I think imagine like all these teams would swim in the same direction, like we would be on the moon already tomorrow. But yeah, I feel like we're getting there. It's obviously also, a lot of it in crypto is also tied to speculation and token price go up, and when that's not the case, then things turn around. But yeah, I think still, we had a lot of people tune in here, still 60-70 people. So yeah, if you guys want to what's probably ask you, like, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you if they listen to this now, like, hey, I want to talk to Mark, I want to talk to Sam? What's the best way to talk to you guys?
I mean, Twitter or like email, probably Twitter, I would say.
Okay.
I'm like old-fashioned. I feel old when I say email.
Definitely reach out on Twitter DMs. Like, I'm always happy to help out, always happy to answer any questions, play around, and like let's build whatever you're building together, and let's see what it can all do.
There we go. Yeah, just bringing your guys' Twitter up. I think that's it. Anything else from your side before we wrap it up? Did we miss anything?
No, I think this has been like super fun.
Yeah, super fun.
Definitely want to work closer with you, like on building that narrative and building that alignment across the ecosystem. You're diving into many other ecosystems and seeing what's working, what isn't working, and so the more we're like sending you out as like a spy, as a Cosmos spy to other ecosystems.
Yeah.
So you can bring back all the good stuff and none of the bad stuff.
Yeah, and like honestly, I mean, I've already had sessions here like a couple of weeks ago with the co-founder of Milko Meta, which is an EVM chain on Cardano. I had a discussion with him and Zaki. Very good debate about liquid staking between Cosmos and Cardano. I had Patrick O'Grady, head of engineering from Ava Labs. And whenever I talk to these people, and also off camera, I noticed like they're all very, they respect Cosmos a lot, and they respect you a lot for like being true builders, right? I think that's very refreshing for people in crypto, is to see that Cosmos is not a flashy ecosystem, but it's actually an ecosystem of true builders. So, I'm happy to get out there even more. But the feedback I'm getting is, thanks to you guys, because you are doing all the hard work in the background. But I think there just needs to be a little bit more awareness of all that stuff that's going on. But yeah, lots of positivity, good vibes. We're gonna go through this bear market together. Like, we're gonna make it. It's just a cycle. Everything is fine. Cosmos is not dead. Also, to answer the question, it's more alive than ever, probably. So yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Marco, Sam. We should do this again sometime. And
yes,
cheers.
Likewise, thanks for having us on.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.